Welcome back to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. And we have a good episode today. We're going to recap a lot of things for spring training and a lot of stuff that's going on this week. And believe it or not, we are less than 2 weeks away from when the Dodgers get ready to head over to Tokyo, Japan to begin that 2-game series against the Chicago Cubs to kick off the 2025 regular season. But before that, I will thank our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA, college basketball to the NHL, UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And tonight I am joined not by my co-host Jacob Brownson, but fellow Dodgers beat writer and Bleed Lows podcast contributor Mike Salas, or you guys may know as Doom Sal on X. Mike, you've had a busy couple weeks. We're here kind of to go over all that, but how are you doing tonight as we record this on Sunday Eve?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Like you were saying, busy, 10 or 12 days out in Arizona, which were split up in 2 different trips. Had a great time, super fun. It was actually my first time actually going for when pitchers and catchers reported. That was my first time. Usually I go at the second or third week and go for like maybe 10 days total. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, from all the videos I've seen, since I've been a fan in like the golden era of Dodger baseball where they've been competitive pretty much every year of my life, they've made the postseason, 10, 11, 12 straight years now. They're coming off a World Series win. I knew it was probably going to be crazy this year. The anticipation last year was high. I think it's even higher this year because not only the Dodgers, like I mentioned, they're the defending World Series champions, but then they went out and still spent, hundreds of millions of dollars to make this team even better. And, the vibes are high. The excitement is there. And you can see it at camp right now, even from the fans that were there. People wanted to see these players. A lot of what I'm getting comparisons to is they're saying, this is like the modern day Beatles. It seems like people are just excited just to even see, a player walk to the training facility or, get in some game action. I've seen some of the ticket prices for Camelback Ranch this year. And I mean, I guess you if you want to go watch these practice games for that amount of money, so be it. But you were there for a little bit. You mentioned those 10, 12 days. You watched them in the backfields practice, went to a couple of games. How crazy just was it, this past couple of weeks?
I'd say the first week was not crazy at all. I got there on Sunday night, stayed the night. My nephew just lives right down the street. It's like less than 3 blocks away from the stadium from Camelback, so it's super easy to get to. Got there Monday morning. The gates didn't open up till 10 o'clock. Went through there. There wasn't a whole lot of people there, to be honest with you. The first week that I was there, super easy to get around. I'm familiar with it, going there for so long. From where they have the clubhouse, the batting cages area, or indoor batting cages, and where they do the pitching laboratory, what they're calling it now. There's a walkway that goes down to Field 1, which is right across the walkway, and that's where all the fans gather up. They sit there, wait for the players to come out. They scream and yell for them. They wait for them to do autographs. If some of them do, some of them don't. So it was cool. The second week was a little bit more people. The weekend was super packed. The weekdays are the times to go. There's not that many people around. You can move around pretty easily. But on Saturday and Sunday, it's super tough to get around. The walk pass that goes from the back gate to the store, getting into the front gate for the field is completely packed. When you go down the pathway going towards the minor leagues fields, that is super packed on the weekend. So it's a little bit harder to get around. And when you got Roger can attest to it. The amount of equipment that I have on my back and all over my shoulders. It's a little tough to get around without bumping into people and stuff like that. But I'd say if you want to go during the weekends. Of course, it's almost over. I think we got like another week and a half. Um, but if you're going to go during the week. Prices are a little cheaper during the week time to go into the games. I mean, when I first started going to I went like I think if I remember right, it opened in 2017, and then I went the following year in 2018, and tickets were like $9. Um, Now they're like you can get a grass seat for like $60. That's not including trying to get something behind the plate down third base line or whatever. So you can find
Yeah.
some good deals, but it's a lot of fun.
That's something I brought up before too. I haven't been fortunate enough to go all the way out to Arizona to watch the team train out there or any other team in the Cactus League. But since I am on the East Coast, I am close to Florida, so it's like less than an hour of a flight. Went there last year. A couple aspects of just spring training I like getting to see the players up close and personal and doing more things than just playing the game.
Hmm.
I've seen from your footage, your images that you sent me, and pretty much anyone else there that was covering the team. Watching Mookie Betts just take grounders religiously, all the other position players working on, defensive drills, PFPs, throws, all that stuff. That gets me a little, excited just watching all that, just being a former baseball player, kind of seeing what they do and how hard it is to be as good as they are in today's game. And then you bring up the ticket prices. I remember last year I sat behind home plate at Baycare Park, which is the Phillies spring training complex. I think
Hmm.
it was like $40, and I was like one row behind, the second row, right next to the Phillies dugout. Bryce Harper's literally like a couple feet away from me. And if you were trying to go to that Otani debut game at Camelback Ranch the other night, you were, I think the cheapest ticket that was selling I saw on social media was around $160 to $180. I don't think I'm dropping that much money on a spring training game.
No.
I'll wait for, when the games count in the regular season or even a postseason game. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement to go around the camp this year. We obviously know that. And I think you in particularly got to see probably the most exciting part of spring training. And that was when Roki Sasaki faced live hitters for the
Hmm.
first time on an opposing team. He faced a ring of Chicago White Sox minor leaguers. Obviously, we saw this, the stats that went about it. He went around 3 innings, gave up a couple hits. Social media went all buzz when he gave up the home run to White Sox top prospect Kyle Teal. But you were there in person. Before we get into all the numbers, all that stuff, his start coming up on Tuesday. Um, what were your just overall impressions seeing this guy, in person, warming up, getting ready to face major league? I mean, you could tell they're major league ready hitters. What did you see from his performance there? Because I saw a lot of people, including in the Dodgers side of things, they said, we liked what we saw. The velocity was there, all that stuff. But what did you see with your eyes? What's your eye test telling you?
I think I'll start off with that the week before when I saw him in his first live BP the week before of the film coverage that I posted of him. You could tell he's a little nervous, having the amount of people that are there watching him. You know, Unfortunately, we're an affiliated site, so we do get press passes. So I'm able to get into the area. There's a roped off area right at the bullpen that you can get to, which you can get a lot closer. You can hear Dave Roberts talking to the players, going over mechanics with him and Mark Pryor do that. You can hear everything. You get really good footage. So I'll start with right there. He seemed a little tentative. He seems a little nervous. Which is probably to be normal coming from Japan, being such a highly sought after pitcher by many teams, and the Dodgers pick him up. I imagine there's a lot of his mind saying, I got to prove myself. I got to go out here and start throwing and, and do what I need to do. So the first week, his bullpen was pretty good. Had a lot of really good velocity on it. His spin was really good. But there was a couple of times that he threw it over the catcher's head, and it almost went over the backstop. That's how far up it went. So his control issues were a little weird in the beginning. And I'll say for his live BP, Tim Rogers and I were there together. Rogers was there with us. He was over on the left hand side, and it was good. His velocity is there. His concentration is there. He didn't have a whole lot of pitches that were outside of the box. There was a couple, that went in the dirt, that were off on the inside, not to the outside. But he just hung that. I think it was a slider. He just hung that slider up a little bit, and that's why it went over the fence. If he didn't hang it up, he probably would have swung and missed at it. So he just kind of hung that up. And after that, after that one pitch, he was the first batter that hit it out. He looked decent after that. You could see the whole team, behind him up on his right shoulder, were watching him, and they were all, looking to see what he was doing. And, I would say he's decent. Is he major league ready right now? Is he where Yamamoto was when he first come over? I would say no, in my opinion. I don't think he's like super in the realm of Yamamoto, especially last year when he first came in. I think he's got a little bit more to get used to. He was supposed to do another live, not a live, but another bullpen the following day. But they took him in that building I was talking about, where they have all the electronics and they hook him up to everything. That's what they call their laboratory, and that's where he was at the whole day. So there's some mechanical issues that they're still working out on him, and there's some other things that they're probably his control issues, that they're working out with him too.
Yeah, and I'll give you credit here. You got the whole at bat on your X profile page on your media side. We
Mhm.
also uploaded on the YouTube channel as well. So if anyone didn't get to see the full, I think it's around like 12-minute
Yeah.
full couple innings that he went there. In total, 38 pitches, 3 innings. Gave up the home run, 2 hits, 1 double, 1 home run. Struggled with command a little bit. Had the 2 walks. 1 strikeout. It was on the signatures pitch, the splitter to end that first inning. And then
Hmm.
gave up a couple grounders, some easy outs there. So I think all in all, the big thing I was looking for was when they were going to ask Dave Roberts about his velocity, because, we're used to, from the footage that we have seen that a lot of people have seen is based off the WBC, where he was he was averaging over 100 miles per hour for his fastball. Clearly, I know you and I have discussed, some of the injury history that he's had in the MPB, particularly last season. So that's the big thing right now, I think, for the Dodgers is how fast is he throwing? How's he feeling after it? And Dave Roberts pretty much said, mid 90s, wouldn't confirm a set number, but I'm going to say around 95, 96 miles per hour. And they're still building him up. He
Hmm.
wouldn't go as further to say, is he still starting that, like the second game of that series in Japan, of games that actually counts? My expectations is that he probably won't, but we'll see what happens. I think it's really big what he does on Tuesday against I forget who they're facing that day. But
Yeah, I don't remember the team.
he is expected. I thought it was surprising. Sasaki in his debut isn't starting the game. He's supposed to come in relief after Yamamoto and is
Hmm.
expected to go 3 innings, which seems like a lot for your first Cactus League action. But I guess he must have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Looking at that, seeing him in a relief role and then getting his debut out of the way. I mean, what are your overall expectations for the rest of the spring? Because we talked about it, a couple minutes ago. There's not that much time between now and then when the season actually starts and counts. So he doesn't really have much time to build up, and they wouldn't confirm or deny if he was going to be a starter for, those first 2 games or the start of the regular season in
Hmm.
domestic opening day.
I think for, my personal view of it, I think he's going to start the second game of Japan. I'm not. I think that it's just more of, you know they're in Japan. The fans want to see it. It's a marketable thing for him. Whether he pitches like 1 to 3 innings, at least he's going to start the game. For everybody in Japan. So I think he's going to start on that second game. As far as that, honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if they push him down to Oklahoma for like maybe a month, and get some mechanical issues done, figured out for him, because he wasn't the same pitcher as he was, last year in the NPB. His velocity was down. The year before that, he was hitting, 101, 102 miles an hour. His spin rate was super good. His spin was down last year. His velocity was down, and in my opinion, that's all due to his elbow injury uh, that Lotte had was hiding from a lot of people. He was out for, I think, almost 3 months in the NPB because of that elbow injury, and so I think they're trying to figure that out, and what is wrong with him, and because he stated, in the homework assignment that he gave everybody, the Dodgers are trying to figure out, his velocity and the spin, why it's dipped and why it's not the same as what it was. So I'm not going to be surprised if he goes down to Oklahoma for like a month, or just stays in Arizona for a month and goes through that lab that they have there.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it's a bold take to say maybe the Dodgers do just option him down depending on how the rest of spring goes and maybe that first game in Japan goes if it doesn't go too well. Unlike Yamamoto, this guy has options. I think the
Mm-hmm.
Dodgers signed him knowing the ceiling is probably higher than Yamamoto, but it's still a work in progress. And I still see some Dodgers fans, yes, you can get excited, but it is going to be a work in progress. They signed him to a minor league amateur, deal for a reason because he was posted so early and he's only 23 years old. So clearly he's not fully built up, but he's a lot better than a lot of other guys that are either going to
Mm-hmm.
get signed out of high school, drafted out of college. So, maybe he is ready to go off the right when the season starts. The Dodgers have the luxury of having, multiple starters that can help alleviate the innings and any arm concerns with Sasaki himself. I am interested. So they are playing the Cincinnati Reds. It will be at Camelback Ranch. It
Yes.
is a late afternoon game at 5 o'clock Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time for me. But since it's at Glendale, StatCast, a lot of these spring training facilities don't usually have it. Camelback Ranch does. So we're going to see
Yeah.
velocity. We're going to see if you go on the MLB at bat app or Baseball Savant, which is what I primarily use. We're going to see spin rate. We're going to see velocity. We're going to see extension. We're going to get a pretty good picture of where he is at right now. And I think that's going to be telling about where the Dodgers go forward after this, because like we said, only a little bit less than 2 weeks until this team's getting ready to board a flight and go to Tokyo and start the season. So the Dodgers don't have much time to get their starters built up. It's pretty much now or never. And Sasaki
Mm-hmm.
getting to go 3, maybe 4 innings to, in that game. It's going to be exciting to watch. I am expecting maybe him to get hit around a little bit, but maybe have a little bit of issues with command due to nerves and stuff like that. But my big thing is just going to be looking at the velocity, like you said, like how's the elbow look? How is the arm feeling? And how does he rebound after that? I feel like that's just the key things in spring training you should look for. Not really the statistics sides of everything. As long as he's healthy and throwing fast, I think that's what the Dodgers are going to be comfortable with.
And I think the Dodgers learned from Yamamoto last year. I don't know if they really pushed him harder than they wanted to, and expected a lot more out of him. I think they're kind of slow playing Sasaki a little bit, and kind of building him up, easing him in the position, and not just throwing him to the wolves like they kind of did Yamamoto last year. So I think they learned a lot from them, from their experience last year, with him, and they're going to change things up a little bit with Sasaki. I will say, another thing, for just last one point, when he did pitch against the White Sox, when he came out for his third inning, you could see he kind of tired out a little bit, and his command was just not there. He didn't even finish the full third inning. He only faced like 2 or 3 batters. And, that was a knock on him in the MPB, was his conditioning. His first 2 years, they had to shut him down for like, a month at a time because his conditioning just was horrible. And you can see that in that live BP, he didn't even get through the third inning.
Yeah, I definitely, it seemed like there probably was some fatigue there, a little bit of amps, probably ran out of adrenaline after that,
Mm-hmm.
like that second inning. So, but yeah, this Tuesday at Camelback Ranch, we're going to have all the statistics and sabermetrics. They're going to be analyzing him that start. So it's going to be a very interesting day. It's going to be a very highly anticipated day for the Dodgers, MLB, all that. Everyone's going to have their eyes on that game. So we'll definitely have more updates on the Bleed Lows podcast and DodgersBeat.com, which is where we got all of our editorial stuff. So be sure to check that out there. Kind of moving on, some brief
Mm-hmm.
updates with the Dodgers. Clearly, since you left, they seem to have activated everybody, returning to the
Right.
lineup. had Freddie Freeman return, we had Shohei Ohtani come back, and then we had Will Smith also come back off of his ankle injury that he appeared to have suffered mid last season against the New York Yankees. Confidence level in all these guys being healthy. I mean, we got Freeman and Smith dealing with their own ankle issues. Freeman's, I think, is an interesting situation where they're saying they're still going to have to wrap that thing probably until the All-Star break. So we saw what he did last year in October, kind of looking like a football player out there, wrapping the athletic tape around it. But then Will Smith as well. We know catching is a demanding position. And then Ohtani, I mean, I know he's a unicorn, but he's coming off of, two major surgeries in back-to-back years. You got the shoulder surgery, you got the elbow surgery you had 2 years before that. Confidence level in these guys being healthy, and what have you seen from them in spring training so far? Because it seems like, Will Smith put a good swing on the ball today. Freddie Freeman's got 2 home runs, and Shohei Ohtani in his first at bat, the unicorn, goes oppo against Kikuchi there. Overall thoughts?
Overall thoughts, they all looked really good, especially from the first week. There didn't look like Freddie wasn't there the first week. I think he came in the second week that I was there. I think it was the second or third days when he showed up. I don't remember too well on that one. I saw Ohtani pitch a lot. Saw his batting practices a lot. Doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with him. He looks like a normal hitter and a normal pitcher. During his velocity, one of the last BPs that I saw him pitch at, he was hitting 96 miles an hour, almost 97. The ball coming out of his hand, going into the catcher's glove, you can hear the pop. His arm looks super strong. His batting practices look really good. He did go back in the backfields one of the days that I was there and faced I can't remember the name of the pitcher I think he was from Great Lake Loons, and he pretty much struck out Ohtani almost every time that he was through a couple of innings to him. He did break his bat, and once he got his new bat, he got a couple of really good hits off of him. But I don't have any worries about him. I don't really have any worries about Freddie Freeman. He's moving around very well. We've seen yesterday's game and today's game. He's got 2 home runs already. Looks like he's back in form, ready to go to Tokyo and smash the ball into the seats. Will Smith, he was there from the beginning, from when I first got there. I didn't see anything from him. I was surprised when I saw the report that he was injured, that he was going to play, because he's walking around fine. Every bullpen that I saw him in, he was walking around. He wasn't having any problems. Every batting practice that I saw him in, he was hitting just fine. His steps, when he's stepping to go hit, he was hitting the ball very well, putting it on the ground, hitting it in the gaps. He didn't look like there was too. Like I said, I was super surprised when they said that he was injured, and I understand it. I've had bad ankle injuries from my previous job, and I know what a bruised bone is, and and how it feels and stuff. So I couldn't I couldn't see anything in regards to a limp or grimacing or or anything. He looked perfectly fine to me.
Yeah, I think in the interview I think it was on The Athletic with Fabian Ardaya, he basically just said it was a bone bruise that he suffered midsummer against the New York Yankees, sliding into a bag. Doesn't feel any, pain when he's batting or catching. It's primarily just when he runs. And because that was kind of the concern with, me and a lot of other people around that cover the team, is that, we all saw the second half splits for Will Smith last year. They were down across all metrics, batting average, OPS, on base percentage, all that stuff. He just wasn't the same hitter that he was in the first half of the season, which earned him an all-star nod. Postseason, we didn't really see much as well. Yes, he had the home run in the NLDS, but other than that, not much else there. So clearly something was bothering him. So a lot of people said, all right, well, maybe the ankle injury was the issue there. And Will Smith kind of just turned that down right away. He blamed it a lot on mechanics, which if you kind of look at his swing, it looks like he's made some adjustments into his stance.
Yep.
We'll see if that works out for the rest of the season or the first half of this year. Freddie
I,
Freeman, I mean, that guy's an Iron Man. You were gonna say something?
yeah, and my feeling of it is they just overworked Will Smith in the second half, and it was just fatigue.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
I think it's hard because before you could rotate him in the designated hitter spot to keep his bat in the lineup but keep his feet fresh. But now the
Hmm.
Dodgers, like they have Ohtani, he's the designated hitter now, so it's kind of hard to utilize the DH like they did in 2022 and 2021 and 2020. So they're gonna have to get creative. I even threw around, on X and other social media. I even talked about it with Clint on his show, where it's like I remember a time when the Dodgers had 3 catchers on their team in 2019,
Hmm.
and it seemed like that was when Will Smith's rookie year. They got Austin Barnes kind of getting a lot of reps back there, and then veteran presence, Russell Martin. I've seen the way Hunter Fiducia has been hitting. Dalton Rushing is one of the best prospects in baseball. I mean, I don't see what's not stopping the Dodgers from doing that right now, especially to save Will Smith, his legs, his arm, and his overall body. So I guess that's a conversation for another day with
Oh
Dave
yeah.
Roberts and the team. But other than that, Freddie Freeman, I mean, I'm confident in him. He knows his body better than anybody, and he played on that ankle all last October and he looks really good.
Yes.
Gets the scorching hit in his first at bat, and then gets the home runs, and then Shohei Ohtani himself. I mean, he's just his own separate category. I don't think any injury or whatnot is going to slow him down. My big thing with him is just what's he going to look like when he's a pitcher again, and
Yep.
when are we going to see that? And but other than that, I think they're fine. I think the Dodgers are in a good spot. They're starting to see some of their regulars get bled into the lineup. And hey, look, now they're winning some spring training games. I know last week everyone was freaking out about that. But yeah, you put the good players out there. It looks like they're all starting to find their swing now. Teoscar Hernandez went, yard today. Kike, Miguel Rojas is having a really terrific spring. A lot of the Dodgers regulars, they're having some good spring trainings right now as well. And bodes
Austin
well for
Barnes
the
is
season.
actually having a really good spring training. He's hitting the ball very well.
Hitting and with the ABS. He's like
Yes.
4 for 4, I think, in his challenges with that system. Can't forget about Austin Barnes.
Yes.
People think he's just coming along for the ride like Clayton Kershaw, but he actually had a really good offensive season last year for just being a backup that only gets like 100 at bats a season. So
Hmm.
Dodgers just got a lot of good players, and that's kind of leading into the next topic here, where it's been a big discussion. I know me and Clint talked about it on his show, All Dodgers. Everybody knows who Clint is. Dodgers territory, all that. He's been doing Dodger stuff for years. If you want to check out that conversation between me and him, but competition for the final roster spot, position player side, it seems like it's starting to heat up now. We've had a lot of different debates. Dave Roberts has kind of shifted gears on certain players, primarily Hae-Sung Kim, who comes into camp as a second baseman, gets some innings at short, gets some innings in center field. Now they're saying, hey, maybe we will incorporate one of those options so we can get acclimated for the league. I would say it's down to kind of one spot between, you could say, like 5 or 6 players, primarily Chris Taylor, James Outman, Hae-Sung Kim, and Andy Pages. I know we're high on a lot of these guys on this list, but if you look at their overall numbers combined, they're 11 for 66 with 29 strikeouts. It seems like they're making this competition not very close at all between each other. Going over those guys, then you have David Bodie on the other end, who's a non-roster invite. He was, waived by the Cubs this winter, signs the Dodgers with a minor league deal, and he's just hitting the cover off the ball. He had a 2-run home run today, 3 RBIs. He's hitting 500 this spring, OPS around 1,500. Clearly, there's a debate, there's a conversation to be had, and it all starts, I think, with Chris Taylor and Andy Pages along these guys. But what are you seeing with this competition right now? Do you think David Bodie is going to play himself on this roster, or are you saying, hey, he seems destined for AAA regardless of what he does?
David Bodie is, in my view, is the Andre Lipsius of this year. Um, he started out, he started out the season last year for Oklahoma. Played in spring training. Watched him, hit the ball very well. Is a very good third baseman. So that's what I see Bodie as. I think he's going to be on that same path as Lipsius was last year. Uh, Seeing everybody um, hitting, they're fielding, during practice. Hassan Kim is a very good infielder, second base, shortstop. It seems like Mookie Betts has really taken him under his wing. I posted video of Mookie and him talking about batting. You can see the way how they talk with one another. Not just Mookie, even Rojas is kind of taking him under his wing also, and the way that they communicate with one another out on the field. It seems like they got a pretty good chemistry between the three of them. Um, so he's getting some really good help from two All Stars and probably two Hall of Famers. Um, so I'm not too worried about him. Excuse me. So I think he's going to turn around. Yesterday, we saw him hit the home run. His swing looked a little bit better. Today, he didn't do very well, but he's coming in, at the fifth or sixth inning, so he doesn't really have a whole lot of warm up time and a lot of got any rhythm. They're just bringing these guys in, straight off the bench and go, okay, now it's time for you to go hit. And so I can kind of see that a little bit. Maybe once he gets some rhythm, and he gets, the second, third, fourth inning, he's going to feel a little bit more comfortable. But he is struggling. He is struggling, in the games when he's hitting. James Outman, in my view, is identical to what he was last year, especially at the end of the year. He has not progressed at all, in my opinion. He's probably stayed the same, if not regressed a little bit, even though he did go for 2 for 3 today. He got 3 hits, and I think got an RBI today also against the Athletics um, with a triple. So maybe that's going to be a good turnaround for him, and hopefully that's the boost for him to actually say, okay, I still got it. Let's keep going. I like James Outman. I think in the outfield, James Outman is the better outfielder out of all of them. As far as just talent alone, being able to read, willing to sacrifice his body, make the effort. His speed helps out. He's got good vertical leap to where he can get the ball, going over the wall. He shines over everybody else in regards to his defensive skills. The offensive skills just aren't there right now. Pages, as you can tell, he's kind of come around. You can see the difference, in his play. In the last couple of games where he's played center field today and when he played right field yesterday, you can see the comfort level for him. He likes the corner outfield. He's got a very strong arm. His bat hasn't been where it was at, especially last year during last year's spring training when he was hitting the ball over the hill and just knocking the cover off the ball almost every at bat. I could tell you, Chris Taylor, when they played the Reds, he was not happy when he went into the locker room, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. He
Yeah, I
was,
mean, like, there's really everyone knows by now. Chris Taylor, obviously, he struggled the past couple years. I believe that he does want to obviously play better. I believe that he has made changes to his
Mhm.
swing. He's definitely listening to the coaches, but sometimes you just don't have it anymore, and we're just waiting to be proved wrong with Chris Taylor. And I think I told Clint, and I've told anybody else that I've talked to about this situation, he's technically a lock for the roster. He has no options. The only way
Yeah.
you can get rid of him is if you DFA him or trade him or whatever. And the Dodgers aren't going to do that because even though we've seen him at his worst these past 2 years, the upside that he has is still there, and it's going to be hard to trade him when he's owed $13 million and he's been a negative WAR player the last 2 seasons. Not many people are going to just say, hey, I'll give you prospects. No, they're just going to wait until you DFA him and sign him for league minimum if that's the
Mhm.
case. So I understand people's frustrations with Chris Taylor. I always see it on social media, but the Dodgers are kind of handcuffed in this whole situation with Taylor. You kind of just got to root for him to be better at this point.
And he's going to get the last spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with Bodie, it's everyone loves a Cinderella story. I know
Mhm.
there's a lot of other guys out there that cover the team that want Bodie to make this roster. And I would say he's definitely going to start a conversation with that. They're not going to see his stat line and say, hey, no, we definitely have to option this guys. I feel like people in the organization, coaching staff, front office, they're going to see, hey, he's batting 500, OPS is over 15. Maybe he does deserve a shot on this roster. Maybe we can try to find a trade partner for Chris Taylor because, this guy's making significantly less money and he's playing better. But you got to look at his career numbers too. David Bodie's got a 92 career WRC
Yeah.
plus. He's been a below league average bat. The Cubs pretty much gave up on him the past 2 years. He got an option to AAA last year. So if you look at his stat line for 24, kind of looks elite, but it's misleading because it was only in 48 at bats, batted 300. But in his career, for the most part, second baseman, third baseman, kind of played all over the place, but mainly those two positions. The Dodgers infield is pretty crowded. The outfield, I think, is where they would benefit from having an extra person, say a James Outman, Andy Pages, someone like those guys. So I think that's where Bodie is kind of lost. I
Mhm.
do agree with you. I think he probably is the Lipsius of this year's team. He's
Yeah.
going to play really well. He hits well. He can play multiple defensive positions, and it's going to be extremely valuable in AAA. As long as, from what I can understand, is that if he doesn't make the team, I believe he has an opt out where he can just go back to free agency. But from his conversations that he said in multiple interviews about how he feels with the Dodgers, the organization, and the coaches that have made the changes to his swing, I have a feeling he'll probably opt in to stay. But I do think maybe he makes the team in Korea, in Japan, because it's a 31 player roster.
Yeah.
So maybe he does it there. But when they come back home for domestic opening day, 26-man roster, I would say he's the odd man out there. And despite Kim's struggle, I think the Dodgers are going to just ride it out with him. I would
Oh
kind of
yeah.
be
Yeah.
shocked if he went to AAA to the first month of the season. But I think he gives them more flexibility than any of these other players do. And it's also just because James Outman has options and he hasn't played well. And Andy Pages, I know how high you are on him. I'm high on him as well. They just see it on there and they're like, hey, he's got 3 minor league options left. We're just going to send him down to AAA and give him regular playing time in a position he's comfortable with, whether it's learning center field still or going back to right field, left field in the minors. So
Mhm.
that's the thing that sucks about playing for this roster right now. It's extremely stacked in every single asset, whether it's pitching, bullpen, position player side. There's not many spots. So if you're not playing well, and Andy Paz, for the most part, he's in that category as well, where offensively, he's not producing much. 2 for 15 with 6 strikeouts, couple defensive miscues in the first couple weeks. Looks more solid as the days have gone on, like you alluded to. But I just think realistically, starting out the season, I feel like he's going to be the guy that bite the bullet there. Probably
Yeah.
one of the last guys to get optioned.
And Conforto's not doing all that great either, through spring training. So he's one to look at also, in regards to how is he going to be. His defensive skills, just like Outman, are very good, but he hasn't been swinging the bat at all, very well. He did get a hit today, against the Athletics, uh, but he's another one to be looking for, and that a lot of people aren't really talking about also. Of course, you're not going to send him down, because he's not going to have any options, but he's another guy, that needs to be looked at. Um, and is he going to be able to produce, um, beginning of the season, later on in the season? I think so. I hope so. I'm not too worried about his glove, seeing him, move around in the outfield and all that. It's just his offense seems to be, and I get it, it's only, the third week into spring training, so a lot of guys are just coming off, and haven't gotten their rhythm yet, but some of them have. Not everybody's Freddie Freeman who can just click a switch and he's hitting home runs and putting it in the gap and getting that clutch hit. But there's a couple of guys, besides Pajes, besides Outman, that the organization needs to keep their eye on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, including ourselves, it's like, hey, this team, what it looks like in March isn't going to be what it looks like in
Hmm.
September, October. Clearly, the Dodgers are going to have, you don't knock on wood, but they are going to have some injuries. That's just a
Yep.
thing that happens with every team. You're going to have some down years from certain players. You got the trade deadline as well. Like, say, Michael Conforto isn't hitting well, and he's kind of just wasting a spot. Some other teams may find value in that. And then, hey, Andy Pages, you were hitting good in your call ups. You were hitting good in the minors. We think you've made the adjustments. Now we think you're an everyday player. Andy Paz is a guy I think will be, if I'm looking at my crystal ball, will be on the roster come October. He's just too valuable of a guy. He's got a
Oh yeah.
cannon of an arm, powerful, hits lefties extremely well, and it's really just say a matchup thing. If they go against the Atlanta Braves, who have a couple lefties in their rotation, headlined by Chris Sale, I would imagine they want Andy Pages getting some of those at bats. He has the best shot, to give them a run via a solo home run or a multi home run game, something along those lines. So, what it looks like now and what it looks like opening day, both in Tokyo and domestic, isn't what the roster's 100% going to look like by season's end. And I think that's what everybody should go into with, especially like
Hmm.
say Kim doesn't make the roster. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he does make the team, or maybe James Outman does make the team for the first part of the year because they're like, hey, well, we really want to shore up our center field defense. Let's have someone else work at it. We want Tommy Edman at second base. That seems to be the big thing right now, where we were foregone conclusion said, oh, Edman's in center now, but they've been playing him in a lot of games at second. So I
Hmm.
mean, maybe it's they do a mix of things throughout the year because that's the Dodgers. That's what they do. They take advantage of their deep roster, not just in the major league level, but the minor league level as well. We're gonna see some guys come up from double A, triple A, into the majors, bleed into this team and help either pitch some innings, get some at bats, recover guys that are currently out of the lineup that are injured, something along those lines. So it's a whole organization foot forward here for this team.
Well, and it's like, how many other teams have, what's four, deemed four utility players on their team? You got Hassan Kim, you got Kike, you got um, CT3, and now Tommy Edman, who's deemed a utility player. I mean, there's four guys right there that can play anywhere on the field. There's not too many other teams in the league that has that.
Yeah, it's V for versatility for the Dodgers.
Right?
That's the thing that's going around. That's something that they loved forever. And Tommy Edman, where does he give you the best defense? In my opinion, it's still at second
Sec-
base. I
yep.
think that would help the Dodgers infield out a lot. I think with Freddie Freeman on a bad ankle, Mookie Betts kind of still figuring it out at short. He's looked a lot better. But having a Gold Glove award winner at the position that he's played the most in his career could really help that infield defense. And maybe that's why the Dodgers are giving that a second look because, in my opinion, that makes the most sense. And that's why I said maybe James Outman, say they send Kim down to work on his offense. You've even said it. The defense is there. He'll probably be good, above average, any position he plays. Maybe they want him to fit out the offensive side and then say, hey, when you're ready, we'll get you called back up. And then, James, in the meantime, James Outman will patrol in center field because we like his defense there. So Dodgers have options. They can do a
Yep.
plethora of different things. And I think for the next 2 weeks, we're going to start seeing some of these guys, Taylor, Kim, Outman, Pages. Rosario's still kind of fighting around in there, but he hasn't really done much since the first, 2 games of spring training.
I don't really
And
see him doing it being
yeah, David Bodie is another one. We'll see what he does over the next couple of weeks, but it's definitely going to be a storyline to watch. And I'm excited to watch it unravel.
definitely.
Kind of closing out here, a little bit of a fun one, I guess. I sent it to you. A lot of people have talked about it or have seen it already, and that is former New York Yankees starting pitcher slash relief pitcher Nestor Cortes. He had some interesting comments about the World Series. It seems like everybody has interesting comments about the most recent 2024 World Series. And this was in regards to the Dodgers. I'll read the full quote here that was posted in an interview on The Athletic. So people can say it slipped away from us. People can say we made a lot of mistakes, which we did. But at the end of the day, we were the better team. I see it that way, and I'm sure everybody in that clubhouse sees it that way. The reality, going back to LA 3-2, it didn't happen the way that we deserve. All the credit in the world. They won the World Series at that moment. They showed they were the better team. So clearly, everybody first, posted the clickbait kind of title where it's he basically just said that the Yankees were the better team, but they can kind of backtrack at the end in that comment there. But seeing that, it seems like a lot of players on both sides of the ball and on both teams have said multiple kind of comments about each other's teams, whether it's the Dodgers speaking on the Yankees defense and all that stuff, and whether it's the Yankees and some of their players saying, hey, we were the better team. But reading that comment, what are your overall thoughts? What do you agree with Nestor Cortes? Do you think the Yankees were in much better position to dethrone the Dodgers?
I don't think they were in much better position. I was actually surprised at the Yankees. I thought they were going to do a little bit better than what they did. But going back and seeing some of their games, listening to some of the Yankees podcasts that they have, they weren't too high on the defensive skills, of the Yankees team anyway. The Yankee fans, the podcasters all knew that, they were not a very good defensive team. They made a lot of mistakes. The errors were killing the team virtually all year. I don't think the American League postseason was as tough as the National League's was. Everybody knows, when we've talked about it numerous times, the Dodgers Padres was the World Series, in a lot of people's opinion, just because of the way the teams play each other. So the Dodgers pretty much came in once they got past the Padres. I mean, I thought the Mets were going to do a lot better than what they did. They really didn't. So I don't know. Every team's going to fight for their team, saying, "Yeah, we should have won. We were the much better team." And you got to look at the content, that's coming out of from our end. You got somebody like Joe Kelly who didn't even play in the game, who does kind of spout off, quite a bit and says some things, because that's just the way he is. And you have Chris Taylor who didn't really play, make his comments, at Mookie Betts podcast where everybody's, half lit as it was, so, it really doesn't bother me that much, what Nestor Cortes says. He's back in the team that he once played for. He's it's nothing that our team wouldn't have done if the Yankees won.
Yeah,
We would be going through the same thing.
I think that's the big thing. What do you want him to say? This is kind of like the gotcha
Yeah,
journalism. He's getting the interview. Of course, he's not going to throw his old team and his old teammates under the bus saying, no,
no,
no, the Dodgers were 100% better. I think for Dodger fans, obviously, we're all very passionate about, everything that transpired, the team winning. So we're going to defend it. If you look a little closer, the statistics in those games were a lot closer than what a lot of people are going to remember. I mean, if you look at the overall World Series, the Yankees had the Dodgers beat in batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS, but the Dodgers, they were clutch. They
mm-hmm.
got their runners in at the right time. Nestor Cortes knows that better than anybody. He's the one that gave
Yeah,
up the walk-off grand slam in World Series history. That kind of just set the tone. And even looking back now, like where I remember when Freeman hit that home run, I said to pretty much my family, friends, I was like, that's going to be really hard to come back from if you're the Yankees, because the way the team celebrated and like I couldn't even imagine being like the Yankee side of things. You're getting ready to win game one in an opposing team's ballpark, and then Freddie Freeman just rips out your heart. I mean, that kind of just set the tone for the series. And the Dodgers, if it weren't for a kind of wasteful bullpen game that they kind of kept it very close, the Dodgers
right.
probably would have swept that series if they had one more legit starting pitcher. And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest advantage the Yankees had that series was their starting pitching. We even talked about it before with another Yankees podcast on the network, on the Believe Network, and he mentioned, starting rotation. That's the big advantage you can give to the Yankees, and the starting pitching for the Dodgers ended up being better. Flaherty in game one, tremendous. We all saw what Yamamoto did in game two. Bueller postseason, October Bueller did what he did on the biggest stage, and then he ended up closing it out. So I think it was closer, but the Dodgers did the little things right, and that's where we see like comments like Chris Taylor, Joe Kelly, and even like you alluded to, Yankees podcasters and media guys. They said we've known this all season. They don't run
Mm-hmm.
the bases well. They don't play defense good. It's the small things that they relied on star power to just over hit their issues. And the American League, for, if you look at it, it wasn't really the best last year. It's not the best coming into this season either. So you could pretty much pencil in the Yankees being one of the favorites to repeat as American League champions. But I don't know, to say the Dodgers weren't the best team all year, despite all of their injuries that they had, losing Mookie Betts for like 2.5 months, Freddie Freeman back and forth in the middle of the summer, with his personal issues with his son, and then him having the fractured finger, all that stuff like there. They still finished with the best record in baseball. They
Yep.
still had a top offense in the game, runs per game. They beat the Yankees in all that stuff. And then even in their regular season head to head, Dodgers won that series 2-1. And then in the World Series head to head 4-1. So I don't know. I just feel like if it was me being asked the question, I would say, oh yeah, we were definitely better than we were in that good spot too. So
Yeah.
I just think it's a gotcha kind of clip, but it was interesting nonetheless.
Yeah. There's no other way he's going to answer that question. Of course, they were the better team. Like I was saying, if we would have lost, and they would have interviewed, Jack Flaherty, if he was still on here, that's probably something that he would say, oh yes, we were the better team and we should have won, so I just take those types of things, and I really don't pay attention to stuff like that, honestly.
Yeah, that's the competitive nature of the sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's really nothing else to talk about at camp right now. Off day today when this episode drops on Monday. The big day is Tuesday, where
Mm-hmm.
Yamamoto is making one of his last starts of spring training, and Roki Sasaki will make his Cactus League debut. We should have another live episode some point this week to go over all of that and get deep dive into Sasaki's numbers, the Dodgers, all that stuff. Website, we're posting our positional previews. I know, Mike, you've had a couple posted on the website as well. We're finishing up the outfield this week. Then we're moving on to the pitching side. So DodgersBeat.com. Be sure to check out that as well. Is there anything else you want to plug right now, Mike, before we end the episode?
No, not really. The only thing that I'd really actually say is, just for everybody, just to keep it real short, is Yamamoto looks amazing this year. I know that there's been a lot of talk about Zaire Hope. Everybody got to remember he's only a 20-year-old kid. He's smashing the ball. He's doing really good. I don't think that he's really going to make the team. He's going to go back. I see him being promoted this year, if not to Tulsa, to Oklahoma. And don't be surprised if he actually does make a cameo or an appearance or two during the regular season, with the Dodgers if there's an injury. But I don't see him making the team at all.
Yeah, he actually did get optioned out of minor league camp right before we started recording this. So clearly
Okay.
the Dodgers have their intentions where he's going. I do agree
Yeah.
with you. I think he probably will be in AA or AAA this year. Probably low A isn't his speed anymore. But other than that, got a lot of content on the channel side as well with the
Yeah.
Bleed Los podcast. We got the all Spanish version of the podcast, the all Japanese version. The carne asada is back. We had our first episode drop for that as well. And then we have here where we got all the news, the rumors, game recaps, all that stuff on this side of the podcast. So got content coming every day. We got player interviews. We're getting ready for the regular season where we're going to be covering the team in Los Angeles. We got a couple of road series in the beginning of the year that I'm going to be going to for that
I'll
as
be
well. So be sure to
I'll be
subscribe.
going to road games also, and don't forget, we're more than likely going to be in Anaheim too for the other 2 or 3 spring training games that they have scheduled.
Yeah, and
Before the
then the
opening
only
day.
other thing, we are getting very close to another milestone on the subscription fund for the channel. I know, Mike, you have something on your end, sort of a giveaway, correct?
If we hit 15,000 subscribers, if the intent was before the regular season starts, the home opener, I'm giving away a Otani jersey.
Yeah. So be sure, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe, like the video, share it. It helps with the algorithm, all that stuff to promote the page, and also get you ready to be entered in to win that jersey. Um, but yeah, other than that, it's been an interesting couple weeks at camp, and we're getting ready for the regular season coming up in a little bit over than 2 weeks. But a lot of storylines, and we will have them covered here on the Bleed Los podcast on DodgersBeat.com. We will see you for the next one. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. Have a good one.
See ya.